Now, though I enjoy pretty much every aspect of Star Wars and or discussing every aspect of Star Wars, what I probably enjoy most is talking about things like the nature of the Force, the ways of the Jedi and Sith, what balance is or means, how it all relates to the real world, and other similar related topics. In fact, as a lot of you know, I've certainly made plenty of videos discussing all these things in the past, where I usually lump a lot of these topics together in one video and give a sort of overview to it all. So what I want to do starting with this video is to begin a series that really digs into the finer details, to truly explore some of the philosophies and ideologies of Star Wars, and or to examine some interesting questions that arise because of them. And I'm often going to be coming at it from, or mainly trying to see it from, the perspective of George Lucas, or what he intended for this all to mean, or what I feel he intended for this all to mean, because obviously only Lucas himself knows his true intent. Though, yes, at many times over the years, he has tried to explain things. He's talked about things like the nature of the Force, the light and the dark, and what it all means. There's also, of course, the movies themselves for us to look at and extrapolate from, as well as the things he said he based them off of. There are also real-world belief systems and or religions that are very similar or that he likely drew inspiration from, with Taoism being one often cited. And Lucas himself has said one of his goals with Star Wars was to reinvigorate spirituality in the young, though he made it clear he wasn't trying to push any particular religion, just belief in something beyond the self. So basically what I'm saying in a very long-winded way is this is my interpretation of where I think Lucas was coming from with all of this, meaning I'm not trying to say or imply this is absolutely right or correct, and not open for any sort of debate, only that this is how I've come to understand it after years of loving and studying both Star Wars and the words of George Lucas himself. And as I like to say sometimes, I'm not here to explain Star Wars to you, I'm here to discuss it with you, so do leave your thoughts about what I'll have to say in this video in the comments below. Okay, so all that said, I do think there's some confusion or misunderstanding when it comes to what Star Wars is all about, though yes, it can certainly be or mean different things to different people. For some, it's just the surface level stuff that they love. They like cool lightsaber fights and space battles and all of that, which is absolutely fine. But for others, it's obviously much more than that and something much deeper, which tends to lead some to, intentionally or not, overcomplicate things, when in reality, the basic ideas of Star Wars are quite simple, which is where I want to start with this video, with the very basic philosophy behind the Jedi, or what Lucas sort of wanted them to represent, or the message we should take away from them. And the first thing we have to understand is what the dark and light sides of the Force are supposed to represent. And I'm not talking about what they are within the context of the story itself, or what they are to the characters in it, but what we in the real world should see them as, which is quite simply light side equals selfless, and dark side equals selfish. Those who follow the path of the light, the Jedi, think of and do for others, while those who follow the path of the dark, the Sith, think inward and only do for themselves. And to take it a step further and bring attachments into the picture, the idea behind the Jedi, why they don't allow them, is that they believe that someone with nothing has everything to gain and nothing to lose, which leads to joy and a profound sense of meaning in your life, since you spend it giving and helping instead of seeking things for yourself, and then taking and possessing them, which of course, getting stuff I mean, usually just leads to temporary satisfaction or gratification before you want more stuff. Which is the main problem for the Sith. They have or want everything, and so they will eventually get to the point where they have little or nothing more to gain, and instead just have everything to lose, which leads to fear, constant fear that someone is going to try and take what they have from them, and then of course that leads to anger, hate, and finally suffering. So to put it in the most basic of terms, the difference between the light and the dark, the Jedi and the Sith, is selfless versus selfish. It's the idea that one side has everything to gain and nothing to lose, which leads to joy, while the other side has nothing to gain and everything to lose, which leads to suffering. The end, nothing more to explain here. That's Star Wars in a nutshell. And I'm of course joking because there's usually a couple counterpoints brought up here, and one in particular that I'll be addressing in just a moment. But before I do, let me make it clear that I'm only talking about the very core beliefs here, or the core of what is being represented. There's obviously much more to it than this, which I hope to get to in future videos. But what the Jedi represent is an ideal, one that sure we can strive for here in the real world or strive to be more like, but that isn't something most of us are ever going to be able to achieve, even if we tried our hardest and really wanted to be like one. We're not supposed to watch Star Wars and think, I should literally act like a Jedi and live like one. We should watch it and be inspired by them, inspired to do or be better in our own lives. Because, yes, pretty much all of us could stand to be a bit more selfless and do a bit more for others and give a bit more. And most people who live like that, who do go out of their way to be generous and kind, to give, not only bring joy and happiness to others, but experience it themselves. And no, that doesn't mean we should never ever be selfish to some degree, or never think inward, or at times prioritize ourselves or the people in our lives we care about the most. Heck, the vast majority of beings in the Star Wars galaxy fall somewhere in between the two extremes, just like pretty much all of us here in the real world do. And again, we have to remember the Jedi way is pretty much an unattainable ideal to strive to be more like. It's not one that would even work on the whole, or if everybody behaved that way. Some serious problems would likely arise if everyone was always trying to give and no one wanted to take or to form deep, personal, and intimate relationships with others. And this is usually where a lot of people get hung up, and the main counter argument is made against the Jedi and or their way. They believe that by denying themselves things, and in particular possessive love, and denying their emotions, that they're automatically setting themselves up for failure or disaster because no one could or should live like that. And usually Anakin Skywalker is the one pointed at as an example of how wrong things can go. Problem with this, however, is that the Jedi do not deny their emotions or pretend they don't have them. Instead, they're mindful of them, and they don't let themselves be ruled by them or act based off of them. They're constantly aware of the way they're feeling and how their actions can and will or would impact those around them for good or bad, whereas the Sith are not so mindful of anything, and they just embrace their feelings and use them to get what they want without worrying about anyone or anything else around them. And though Jedi do not allow possessive love type relationships, it's not like they deny themselves love or all forms of a relationship or aren't allowed to have friends or important people in their lives. Again, they just have to be mindful of the importance they place upon that relationship or the person and how it could affect them or others. In fact, the Master-Padawan relationship or bond is of the utmost importance to the Jedi. There's no responsibility greater than training the next generation, and for most, it's probably something akin to a parent-child relationship. But just like with parents, they have to be willing to let go of their children at a certain point. And as Yoda once told Anakin, they have to learn to let go of everything they fear to lose, which sounds rather harsh on the surface or at face value, but what he's really telling Anakin, or trying to, is he can't control fate. People he cares about will die or move on with their lives, and he has to be willing to accept that or to let them go. He's not necessarily telling Anakin he can't or shouldn't help those people if he can. He's not telling him in that particular scene or situation that, oh, you're having visions of someone you know dying? Well, tough, you have to let them die. He's trying to tell Anakin that he cannot forego everything else to try and save them if it's not meant to be, nor should he blame himself if he cannot save them because some things are just destined to happen or well beyond his control. He's telling him that he can't put that one person he cares about above absolutely everything else because, in a way, it's selfish to think you should control or be completely responsible for the fate of another person when sometimes things beyond your control will happen. And the true irony of the whole Anakin-Padme situation is that it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It was Anakin doing everything he could to save her, which led to his fall to the dark side, which then led to her death. And if Anakin had listened to Yoda and wasn't so worried about saving her, she likely never dies. Anyway, as you can see, even discussing the most basic ideas can quickly turn into a much longer discussion, so I'll stop myself here and just reiterate the core ideas of Star Wars and the Jedi, which is, it's all about selfless versus selfish. It's about the idea that if you spend your life giving and having nothing to lose and everything to gain, you will know joy. But if you live your life only taking and having nothing to gain and everything to lose, you will know suffering. And obviously, pretty much nobody in the real world can or does live at either of these two extremes, and the point of Star Wars is not to try and convince you to literally live like a Jedi, it's to try to make you be more mindful of the way you go about your own life, to make you ask when and where you can be more generous, to make you more aware of the way your feelings dictate your actions, and how that might be impacting those around you. Or sure, it can just be about cool lightsaber fights and space battles, which is maybe the truly great and amazing part about Star Wars. just how many levels it can be enjoyed upon. Well, that's all I've got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think the core or basic ideas behind Star Wars and the Jedi are. Do you think I'm on the right track, way off, or somewhere in between? Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.